What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor, man.
Oh, and good. And I thought you were also going to say like good old air-conditioned weather.
Oh yeah. It's back. The 21-degree weather is back in Singapore.
Yeah, it's back, and I love it. We're recording this on the morning of Wednesday, 1st March. So probably you and everyone else listening also experienced a wet day yesterday where it rained through the night. It was insane, man. I can't remember the last time it rained this long. Was it at the start of the year? I don't even remember anymore.
I don't even remember, but it was quite. It felt strange that the rain just kept going and even got heavier and everything.
Yeah, man. It was non-stop. I mean, like, it's nice, lah. Of course, it limits your mobility again. But yeah, and I think the next few days are going to be like that also.
Oh, really? Like non-stop?
Apparently, like, I saw some people posting that, okay, get your wet boots ready because the next few days is going to be rainy as well. Because it's part of a monsoon, lah.
El Nino or anything?
No, I think it's the northeast monsoon.
Northeast.
A lot less sexy of a name.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, lah.
But yes, weather's great. It's so good that we're like, I think we're still like, like don't want to get out of bed and get started and everything.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we got nothing else to talk about. We're down to that, like we're making small talk, talking about the weather.
It is, but it also, guess it reflects the kind of topics that we're talking about today, right? It's they're not like gangbusters. They're not gonna like change. They're not like big scandals or anything like that, like the last podcast. But today it's a bit more of a existential discussion of what it means. Whether is it to be Singaporean or to be an ambassador of a sport or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I think it has, like the last one, the last scandal we spoke, and I say scandal in air quotes about the recycling of the shoes and all. There have been clarifications, but even that, right, it felt like it was a very kind of like pointed, specific area. I think the discussion for the first topic, at least, it concerns Singapore, man, the future of our nation. The future of our nation.
Yeah. But it's a discussion about the future of the nation, but a more existential discussion, I would say. Like it's not something that it's not something that next week is or next month is gonna like affect your life anyway, lah. It's existential, like the meaning of existential, like is like you question your identity, kind of things. But it's not like gangbusters.
Yes, Terrence, I know the meaning of existential. Thanks, Terrence.
So
thanks for clarifying.
Add some nuance to the discussion rather than just saying it's about Singapore, so it's important. Yeah.
But it is about Singapore, and it is important. So you can add some nuance. Some depth, some depth.
Yeah. I'm not the type that goes to just the rage baity. I don't want to be too rage baity about it.
Very passive aggressive today. Very passive aggressive today, Terrence. You woke up on the wrong side of the bed, is it, Terrence?
It's the rain. Terrence? I haven't woken up yet. Yeah, you are accessing my subconscious as we speak. But anyway,
Yes, okay, cool. So before we jump into that, anything to plug?
I think maybe it's just a good old, if you think this podcast is good for you or helped you in any way, please tell us about it, whether it's via leaving a review or telling a friend about it, tell us how the podcast has been good for you. Because I think for us also, we're actually at the stage where we're trying to figure out exactly, what we're trying to do with the podcast in 2023, right? I think 2022 was a very good year where we had a lot of, try a lot of different things. For example, like co-hosts, new guest co-hosts, right? And a bunch of other live show, a bunch of different things. But I think now,
Folklory.
2023 is the year we double down on what we're good at, and we really want to hear from people also what they want to see in the podcast in the coming year, right?
Yeah. So how can they do that? Like you can go on Reddit, you can DM us on the Yalabat Instagram, Ministry of Funny Instagram. You can email us at contact@ministryoffunny.com. You can stalk us if you see us walking on the street. You can send us a note by pigeon. Any way that's possible.
Yeah, that's right. So, and I think also we're probably going to start putting feelers out to try and get some feedback as well about who exactly listens to this podcast as well, right? Who are you? Why you listen to us, and what what are the things you like about the podcast and all that, right? Because I think that will help us also figure out, okay, what are we going to be doing this year with the podcast, right?
So it's the annual Yalabat census, lah. Is it?
That's
Taking
right.
a page from the government, the census, Yalabat census.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yes.
Shall we jump into the first topic?
Into the very important topic about the future of Singapore
and our existentialism.
Correct. Yes, that's right. Existential crisis.
It unfolded during the Committee of Supply debate on 27th February. It was the Committee of Supply debate, but it was a sitting of Parliament. Because at first I thought, are they mutually exclusive? Are they one and the same? But no, it was part of the Committee of Supply debate. And a lot of things were discussed. The entire video online is 9 hours. But there was a few things stood out, but one stood out more than others. And there's been a lot of chatter online. And it is the proposal by opposition leader Pritam Singh to include a test of English proficiency for anyone who wants to become a citizen of Singapore. And yeah, as in one of the many criteria. So the face-off was between Pritam and Josephine Teo. And I mean, the exchange was quite interesting, and we will get into it. But when you saw this, right, when you saw the title, without diving deep, what came to mind, Terence?
I'll admit, the bias in my mind was that, Pritam Singh, he's a smart guy. I think must be an interesting proposal that he's putting forward. And it sounds logical, right? Like so many people speak English in Singapore, so shouldn't we enforce some kind of parameters of what we want our citizens to be able to do to integrate into society here by having them speak the common language? So I will admit that was the most immediate thought that came to my mind without thinking further about it. And what about you?
So you were team Pritam at the start,
I was team initially. I was team team English. Team English. Team English.
Team English. So I mean, I would also say that this is not a new thought. I know people have discussed it in the past. I know it has become a bigger issue for certain countries. So I was like, hey, actually, that's a valid question. I would like to know the answer to it. And by the end, I was like, I still think that's a valid question. I don't think it was answered well. In fact, now I'm even more convinced that I want it.
You're more convinced you want it.
Yeah.
Okay. I admittedly, to finish my thought, I actually went the other direction that I actually don't think is a great idea.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's where I came to after some thought and some reflection about it. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll just go through what exactly was the sequence of events. So
Sure.
this came, I think, at the 6 hour plus mark, because it's a 9 hour video if you want to see the whole discussion, because there is an excerpt online about this specific question, but I wanted to see what was discussed before and after. But basically, it was he started off by talking about the goals of Singapore, our low fertility rate, that new citizens will be a critical pillar for the future of Singapore, which I think everyone kind of understands, as difficult a pill that might be to swallow. And he then went down the line of talking about what sort of citizens we want, what sort of citizens do we want to have be part of our country. And then he brought an example of Switzerland, where there is a very specific selection process for new citizens. Apparently, the applicants need to show deep commitment to the country, prove to be successfully integrated, and know the Swiss customs and ways. That they must live in Switzerland for 10 years and hold a PR to be naturalized. And also, there's a personal interview where they talk about topics like Swiss geography, history, politics, and society. And then he asked if we have similar requirements. And then he brought up specifically the proficiency of English, given that I think the number of English speakers in Singapore in general has increased over the past 10 years. And as a tool for better integration, better naturalization,
is it part of the process? And then Teo came up saying that, okay, not so sure whether he's advocating for it or it's just a question. Pritam came back on, said he is advocating for it, and then Teo responded and very against it. And it was tied to another question that Pritam asked about the details of PR, people who are given citizenship. How come that is only released in 10-year intervals by the ICA? Why can't it be released on a more regular basis? And Teo's responses, first of all, was that releasing the data could indicate or could miscommunicate supposed preferences that we have for certain countries or certain nationalities. And then she also pushed back against the recommendation that there should be an English test, because she said the spouses of people who maybe come from other countries will be impacted because they might not have grown up speaking English. So to hold them accountable to speak English, not fair. The second thing was that when she walks the ground, she meets a lot of people who don't speak a word of English, and they are not any less naturalized than other people. And there was a third point, which was what was the third point? Yes, there was a third point, which let me pull it up. But that was the overall overarching sequence of arguments, lah. Okay, over to you, Terence.
I think the one thing probably that is also worth noting is that Josephine Teo answered Pritam with, I'm very surprised or very shocked by that suggestion that he made about the language test. So if you watch the exchange in Parliament on YouTube, you'll see there's definitely the element of performance in displaying the shock and surprise. It's almost like I feel like it's almost like Josephine Teo felt like Pritam was really opening up he opened the Pandora's box that would be that she was very willing to dive into and spar with him in Parliament about and I think it's quite, on the surface it's quite clear why like what she's saying about the fact that essentially, Mr. Pritam Singh, are you saying that people who can't speak English are not Singaporean enough? Because there's a lot of people who live in Singapore now that don't speak English that well, right? You can there's almost a certain glee, if I may, there's almost a certain glee in the way she was like trying to confirm. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Pritam? Like, can I confirm that's why you're asking for a language test?
Yeah. And I mean, she did bring up the third point, which I couldn't recall just now, is that most people who apply for citizenships in Singapore have already been in Singapore for a while. So it's understandable that they would have a command of English. So the test is redundant.
Yeah.
But I will echo the sentiment of Teo. I think she started off with and as for your second question, she did a big, that kind of what do you call that sound effect?
The tusk. Yeah.
Like you would write it as a tusk, right?
Yeah.
But it's a... So I won't deny that my sentiments at the end of that exchange was in part also influenced by Teo's response.
How dismissive it felt, is it?
Yeah. And I mean, the answers, it just feels like it's specific to the English thing. Okay, someone applying, you can assume they speak English. I don't think that's fully true. They speak English proficiently. Then the other thing about walking the ground, and a lot of people don't speak English and they're not any less integrated. But we're talking about new citizens. There are a lot of people who don't speak English who are first generation Singaporeans. I mean, when my grandparents were alive, like today, I don't think they would still speak proficient English. But they've been in Singapore for so damn long already. So I also felt like, that's your closing argument. So it's just another instance where I feel, hey, your response needs to be a bit more substantial than that, because otherwise, my opinion is not changed. And in fact, I feel like, no, I want a test. I want a damn test.
Yeah. So why? Can you give a bit more detail? Why are you on the Pritam Singh bandwagon?
Okay. See, you did a Teo there. You laced it with a bit of cynicism, and I could tell the tone in your voice. So fuck you, Terence.
riding on the bandwagon, the blue bandwagon that all the liberal lefties are all sitting on, right?
The woke. No,
Yeah.
you must take you must adopt the theatrics that politicians seem to take in parliament. You must say, Terence, I was just merely clarifying that the thing you said earlier is something that I don't think is the most feasible. So I would appreciate it if you could explain. That's the way you need to talk. That's the way they talk in parliament, you know. So I don't appreciate your tone, but I'll answer nonetheless. I think it's because, I mean, okay, so we are at a Singapore. The more I read about Singapore's state of affairs, the fertility rate, the rising costs, I feel like, oh shit, Singapore, the future is going to be tough, like it's going to be tough, and we are going to need a lot of people to come in and work, right? We are going to need a lot of foreign talent, and I think if there is already a lot of supply for people wanting to come to Singapore, it's not say we have a shortage, lah, right? So why not do things that, I mean, I would assume would help with the integration process if more people speak the common language, lah. Because I'm sure a lot of people listening here have also had the experience where I mean, okay, so I also wouldn't go down the path of, oh, I've met people in Singapore who don't speak English, you know, blah, blah, because those are not citizens, lah. Right? You come here on a work permit, you come here on a work visa, on an S pass. I don't think that falls in this, but I think if you want to become a citizen, why not have this criteria? And then at least there's something that everyone speaks and there's no barrier, lah. And maybe it's just because we don't have any info to convince us, oh, that this is not an issue. Most people who are citizens do speak English. It just feels like, my layman brain is like, that makes sense. I would like people to come to Singapore, become citizens, to actually speak English. What's wrong with that? Because there won't be a shortage of people who want to apply.
So when, I mean, you know, for example, Malay is our official national language, right? Our national anthem is in Malay as well.
Yeah.
So why didn't we make a requirement for Singapore citizens to be able to speak the national language and understand fully what the national anthem is?
Because it's the national language, but is it the most widely spoken language? No.
So widely spoken language. Yeah, but widely spoken language in where you talking about the world or Singapore or what, right?
Yeah, I think in Singapore, lah.
Okay, in Singapore. But so those things also can change, right? Like the percentage can move up and down. We're talking about 10 years ago. I think it was like 30% of Singaporeans who mainly spoke English at home. It has increased to close to 50%, right?
Yeah.
But you know, those things, it shows that those things also shift with time, right? In very short periods, 10, 20 years. And a lot of it also you can say that it's the language of commerce, right? Around the world. Like English has become the language of commerce because of the British Empire and America's pop culture influence and all. So, if next time, if at some point the language again shifts and the use of English shifts to something else because there's another global superpower, say China, that becomes larger and more powerful and has greater pop culture influence. Then what do we after that change? If those demographics change, then should we revise the test to become like, okay, only if you speak Mandarin well enough, then you become Singaporean?
No, I think for me it's less about the global superpower and what language they speak. It's just because in Singapore, you grow up, English is the first language, right? We may have our origins may not have had English as the first language. Malay is the national language. But if you look at schools, English is always the first language, right? There's a common thing that we always hear, speak good English. So I think
there's a government campaign, right? That was
correct.
Essentially to internationalize Singapore to a level where we can do trade with foreigners and the global powers and all that.
Exactly. So maybe it's the disconnect. Because you grow up, you think, okay, we are all going to have to speak English. English is the priority. Speak good English. We want to be a global country. But then when it comes to this, then you're like, hey, okay, for people coming in, you don't speak English, we don't give a fuck. So maybe it's that like, hey, can you all be consistent or not? Like, if
if the language changes and our national language changes, I think as long as it's consistent, right, then it feels easier to. Of course, it'd be hard lah. Like suddenly you just change the language to Sindhi or something, and I also gonna fuck. Then I don't speak Sindhi. Then Sindhi is the national language. I'll be even double whammy lah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, so our national language, that's not even a conversation. You know, our national language, official national language, Malay, and the fact where we're situated in the, you know, the countries around us, and then our biggest neighboring country, and all that. Not, you know, very few of us actually can speak Malay at all. You know, don't even sing a national anthem properly, but even speaking some basic words and all. I think you learn Malay, so you're in the minority. But the truth is, the bulk of us don't actually even speak our national language, right? So that's my thing, is that you want it to be consistent, but then it shifts. The things that this shifts according to time, like the kinds of you know, what's going on around the world and all that. So if there's anything that's really official, it's our national language is officially Malay and all that. The only thing what to me can change over time as well is the language of instruction, the language of commerce, and all these things. So I'm wondering why the, you know, having to stick to English is that part of a you know, a colonial hangover that we're having, that if you speak English, then you are Singaporean. I say that only because there's that whole there's that whole thing about, you know, you see a lot of tourists, like, you know, those Americans who travel to like Japan or Korea, and then they're going around shouting at people, speak English, as if they're supposed to, like, just because they speak English and it's widely used around the world, that everyone else has to integrate into their culture and has to speak English like them, you know, as opposed to carving out your own identity and being very clear about, okay, this is, you know, for example, even Singlish is broken English, right? It's broken English. It's not Singlish. It's not correct. It's a grammatically erroneous form of English, lah. And so to me, like, when the moment you start saying that only if you speak English and the proper English where you score A1 or GCE O levels, then you're considered Singaporean, that to me is like, there's a certain elitism or post-colonial hangover tone.
No, but then you are extrapolating my words. I did not say you need to score A1 or get a distinction. And when you use words like colonial hangover, that's annoying, lah, because then you're being a jotio. You're just painting this bucket. And all you've been doing so far is poke holes in my argument. Can you tell me why you think that? What was your thought process of not wanting this to be part of the naturalization process?
I mean, my thought process is that English ultimately is a language of commerce, and we used it as a common language between all the different races, especially when Singapore was first founded and all that, right? Only 60 years ago or something like that, right? So it's at that point, not very few people spoke English, lah, and there was a huge push to, you know, for Singaporeans to speak English in order to, you know, allow ourselves to be able to work for British, work with Americans and all these things. So it was a very big part of our colonial past, that you have to admit, the elites, the people who spoke English and studied English were of the elite schools. But then there was also a drive to really suppress other languages, for example. I mean, in for Chinese people, remember how dialects were deliberately suppressed in the past, you know? Dialects, literally, you were not allowed to have dialect radio stations or dialect TV programs or dialect anything like. And you look, I mean, myself included, I'm an example. I can't speak my dialect. You know, I had a very big disconnect with my grandmother, for example, because of I wasn't able to speak dialect, lah. And of course, you could point it out, because you were lazy, you didn't want to learn. But the truth is, in school, I was taught, speak English. English is good. English is useful. English is the best. Everything. Or then the next case was, speak Mandarin. Mandarin's useful because, you know, China growing superpower, all that. But then the one language that I could use to connect to my own relatives and my own grandmother and grandparents and all was something that was like frowned upon, and the image of it was like, it's not good to speak a dialect, you know. So as a child, obviously I wouldn't be thinking like I am now, where I like, oh, okay, maybe it's important to be in touch with my roots and all that. So obviously I admit I had a very snobbish view about languages as well. And I was like, oh yeah, only if I speak really good English, then I'll be seen as like smart and everything lah. That's why I worry when people start saying things like, if you don't speak a certain language, you're not Singaporean enough, because that to me is like, then what is, what is I thought it's more about embracing the spirit of what Singapore is, and wanting to contribute and wanting to play a part, to be part of the country's growth and success, right? So it's not so much about where you are now, but about how you can be part of the future of Singapore. So everything to me, when it say it comes down to a test of your English and all, it just feels something about it that makes me feel very unsettled. Like I said, and I don't think I'm mischaracterizing, but there is, because even I myself have felt that before, right? A bit of a post-colonial hangover, like, oh, it's cooler, it's more important that we speak good English and all these things. And I'm just very wary when people start to put in these kind of markers of what it means to be Singaporean like that, no?
No, but then I think you are comparing what it means to be Singaporean to speaking English. At no point have I ever said, and I still don't believe, that just because you speak English, you are Singaporean. I do believe Singaporean is a spirit. I do believe it is a culture. But all I'm saying is, it is a one of many tests. There are so many criteria. Like if you look at the form to become a Singapore citizen, right? You have to give info on your biodata, your family, your other marriages and biological children, your education, your travel, your parents and siblings, and there's so much info. So this is just another aspect to gauge your English proficiency lah. So I'm by no means saying it's a binary thing. Wow, you speak English means you're Singaporean as fuck. So I don't. That's totally not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's a test. And even when I looked at how other countries do it, I know the US.
But we already have these criteria in place. The other criteria you're talking about. So Pritam is. Yeah. I think Pritam's talking about adding on this criteria of English proficiency.
Adding on as a test lah. Yeah.
So
we already have that. So the English proficiency.
Yeah. So
is
that
to be
kind
added.
Yeah. So doesn't that? I mean, we're not characterizing it as you must pass this test and all that, right? But adding that test, to me, the worrying part is that it's saying that the one priority, one big part of being Singaporean is you must speak English, right? That's what I'm saying now, is that when you make that change, aren't you essentially saying that?
You're part of. I mean, wait. Your question was whether it's part of being Singaporean.
No, because I'm not saying that. I'm not. I know we are not talking about only if you take English test then you become Singaporean, right? Then you can be Singaporean. But I feel that adding this English test essentially already is saying that you speaking English is part of being Singaporean, and that's what I have a bone to pick with, lah. So, that's why I'm saying that the whatever we're discussing here, we're not saying that you must pass the English test, then you are Singaporean. But I'm saying that why are we putting this priority on saying that only if you speak English, then you can. There's such a big deal about being a Singaporean, lah. And that's what I'm trying to argue against. Like, why does that have to be even one of the tests, lah?
But that's also can be said to the other criteria that they're asking for, right? The education, employment, travel, family. And it's not say binary, right? It's not say you speak English, you don't speak English. It is just one of the evaluation criteria. And you can set requirements for how proficient you must be, lah. Right? There's conversational English. There's different levels of English. Because the same could be said, like, why does your other marriage, why is it a criteria? Why does your previous marriages why is it why does it determine whether or not you're Singaporean enough? So I'm not saying it's like, wow, you must speak English, if not, you're not Singaporean. It's a criteria. And if you look at the way let me finish.
But
so,
but I feel there's a lot of whataboutism, like if you're talking about the other criteria, because those are very big things to go into. But what I want to just really figure out
let me finish
just talk about the language. Just talk about the language and not the other things.
So no, even the language, what I was about to say is that it's not, say, a binary thing, you speak or you don't speak. Just looking at the other countries, I think there was one I pulled up for the US. It's English is a requirement that is tested during the interview. It is mainly during the interview where it's judged, but even then there are criteria that excludes you from taking the English test. If you've been in the US for at least 20 years and are over 50, you don't need to take the test. If you're over 55 years and you've been in the US for 15 years, you don't need to take the test. And I know the US is not the best example for immigration policy, but I'm just saying that the English thing, there can still be waivers. But why is it that the moment we include it, it is saying, if you don't speak Singapore English, you are Singaporean? So that's where I just wanted to complete my point there. That is just another criteria.
Yeah, but I think it's good that you pointed out that the US isn't exactly the best barometer for what's a good immigration policy. But again,
Sweden, Switzerland, they also have similar measures.
Similar, but you know, my problem is that the word, I mean, we say that, it's not a binary thing, but a test will be a binary measure, right? There's a score assigned, there is a passing grade, there's all these things. Then if you're going to say that, we'll look on it on a case by case basis. If you got 51 points or 49 points, whether you pass, then what's the point of having a test if it becomes another case by case basis?
A test is not binary if there's more than a pass fail, but then it's no longer binary. Binary
but there must be a passing grade, right? That's literally what a test is about. There's a passing grade and there's a non-passing grade.
Not necessarily.
Wait, so you're saying that if IPPT test, for example, is there's grades from A to F, but there's if you get F, you'll be equally considered for officership rank as an A grade or something.
But the passing grade is not right down the middle. For IPPT, passing grade is D,
fine.
right?
But there is a passing and a fail grade, right? That's what I'm saying. That's what a test literally is, right? It assigns a score to somebody, and then there's a passing grade, there's a failing grade, So that's what I feel a bit. It's either we put in a test and then there is a very clear passing grade or non-passing grade, or then it's a case by case basis. I'm trying to understand how do we find it in between. Okay, that's one point about grades. But the other thing is, again, Singapore, Singapore, maybe we are demographically a very different country from other places like the US or even Switzerland. And even Switzerland, for example, Switzerland speaks multiple languages. So I don't think it's just, I'm not sure. I don't think it's just in particular one language that they must be proficient in to integrate with the country, right? Because I think in different parts of Switzerland, they speak different languages, whether it's French or German or Swiss. But same in Singapore also, we have people speaking multiple languages and people from different backgrounds. So to suddenly say that English is the language that we need to use to test everyone, that to me feels like it's kind of taking away from what we're trying to build as a multicultural society as well.
But multicultural is not multilingual. We're not building a multilingual. I mean, to a certain extent, yes.
What? So you don't want a multilingual country? What?
No, multilingual is fine.
Can you just confirm to the House that you just said you don't want Singapore to be a multilingual society?
No. No, there's multilingual, but there is still a language there is a hierarchy of languages in Singapore. Okay, let's not deny it. Right? There is a hierarchy.
Can you confirm what's the hierarchy?
There's a hierarchy of... I mean, English, you look at school, which is considered first language.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying more people use English than other languages, lah. Not say a hierarchy where one language is better than the other, lah. I'm just trying to dig you. I'm trying to take away the shovel. I'm trying to take back the shovel.
Freudian slip. You just said you're trying to dig me. You're trying to dig me. You're trying to get personal.
You have dug yourself into that hole of hierarchy of languages. I'm like, no. It's not a hierarchy. It's not a hierarchy. There is what? Then a ranking. What? There's not a ranking. There's a hierarchy. I mean, more people speak a certain language, but it's not a hierarchy. It's not. There's no this one is better than the other.
But there's literally first language and second language. So
but that doesn't mean that one is better than the other, right? It's just it's more commonly spoken. Yeah. So I'm trying to say it's not a hierarchy per se, right? It's just it's a more commonly used language, English, for sure.
Yeah, okay, more commonly. Yeah, okay, fine. But the thing is, like, what? So let's say if the level is just a basic English proficiency, is it an issue for you that people who want to apply for citizenship may need to learn it?
Is it an issue for me that they need to learn a certain
like what your
language?
apprehension, like I'm not saying that people, if you don't speak, that means you cannot become a citizen. You can always just learn lah. What, like, you just learn basic. If you want to come to Singapore when there's such a oversupply of people who want to come to Singapore, what's wrong with putting in a bit of, like, okay, if you can speak English, it'll increase your chances lah.
Yeah, so that's my thing lah. To make it an official test, I think that's the main thing I have an issue with. Where if someone can speak another language that is used here, maybe not as common, say Malay or Chinese, should they be seen as any less desirable as a citizen just because they can't speak conversational English? Let's say someone, this is completely hypothetical and probably an outrageous example, but someone's a PhD in Malay language or even Chinese language or what. But because his English not good enough, we cannot consider him for citizenship, right? And what about the other? And if it's the point of bringing him in is to maybe help our education system and to bring up the level of language studies in Singapore in those minority languages, doesn't mean we consider him less because he doesn't speak that conversational English. So my thing is, of course, I understand there has to be nuance to it, but that's where it has to become more of a case-by-case basis, and that's why, like, putting an English test to it, I feel like has this very strange connotation of, like, saying that, if you speak English any less, you are less Singaporean, and then that to me just feels, it's just fundamentally, something about it just feels fundamentally wrong.
But just to give another hypothetical situation, there are a number of people, and a few of whom I know personally as well, who have been in Singapore for the longest time. PRs, they seem to fulfill all the criteria, but they still get their citizenship rejected over and over again. So even the current system is not perfect. There are already issues with it where, are these people not Singaporean enough? So on this is the flip side, right? Like so then deciding who is Singaporean enough, who deserves citizenship, is never going to be an easy thing, and is never going to be the perfect thing. So all I'm saying is, I think putting the English thing is still something, after we talk through this, I still am in support of it. And it might change in the future. Yeah.
You're going to get angry because you're going to say I negate. But that's my point, is that let's not look at all those other things and talk about what about all those criteria. I'm not saying that criteria is not important. All the criteria are important. I'm just saying, why do we want to add on this English speaking criteria? Like, to me, it feels like it goes against the spirit of what, integrating people into Singapore society. The fact that Singapore is literally immigrant population, where nobody spoke a word of English. A lot of early immigrants, none of them spoke a word of English coming in, and but they still came, they still contributed, they still did what they had to do, and there's this whole thing about, you must speak English, then you can contribute. That's the kind of thinking that I feel like putting an official test to it will engender, and that's what I feel is not a good signal.
But then, literally what you said, my dad came to Singapore when he was 16, didn't speak English, and he had to learn English because he couldn't get by.
But then, would he, if there was a test for him at that point of time, would he have been let in or allowed into Singapore to become a citizen?
No lah, but there was also when there wasn't a demand of people coming to Singapore, right? And every country has their own different immigration policies and how they welcome foreigners depending on their own situation. Some countries give out golden visas if you can invest, but at certain points, if there are too many people coming in, you do need to put, like, okay, certain criteria. And now Singapore is in a position to do that. And like and I think, like, what did you say just now about the?
That's what I was asking.
No. So the one thing you said about adding on this criteria, it goes against what is Singaporean. But at some point, the criteria, it can change, right? So I don't think I don't think also you are saying that it cannot change. It's just this specific English test that you feel it shouldn't lah. But you're open to the criteria to what becomes what gets you citizenship changing lah, right?
Absolutely. And I think it needs to be changed. I think there's a lot of things that are not right about immigration policy and all. I'm just saying that adding this English thing, which is not there right now, right? There's no criteria for spoken language, is a very different step from, say, adjusting just because you invest money, like just because you're an investor, how easy it is for you to get citizenship and all that, right? I think those things can be tweaked, but adding in this language criteria is a whole other ballgame that I feel is needs to be looked at a bit more carefully, lah. And I mean, yeah, you bring up your example, your dad, and precisely that's why I'm like, is it necessarily does it mean that he's any less Singaporean because he couldn't speak the language at first and all that, right? Or should we deny him a chance to be a Singaporean because he couldn't speak the English language? And that's where I'm coming from talking about that, lah.
At the time when he came, he didn't know what the fuck it means to be Singaporean. So of course he wasn't Singaporean at that point in time. He came and then he got integrated, lah. I'm saying now when there are people coming, even then, like when people become a citizenship, I mean, assuming they have to have stayed in Singapore, lah. So, but that is also a very different time.
Yeah, so I'm saying that
the policies change. Yeah.
When your dad came,
and of course people will always be denied. Like the world is not fair. Right?
Your dad came. He spent time in Singapore. He learned English. He integrated. Everyone loves him. He's the friendliest guy in the village or the kampong, whatever, right? But because he couldn't pass a test in English, then he was denied citizenship, and he couldn't. A lot of things were denied to him because of that. Then hypothetically, would that feel fair to you, lah?
I mean, of course, it wouldn't feel fair, but dude, every day we are getting there's so many things that don't feel fair, right?
Okay,
but you can't. You can't pick and choose because you use the whataboutism about this PhD who speaks a different language who doesn't get. Is that fair? So I'm just saying that
there
will never be a policy that is fair.
I'm speaking about this language thing, but we keep going to everything else is unfair. So why is this one thing unfair? But I'm saying that this thing feels unfair. And that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom, the root of like why you think it's fair. I mean, we're just having a discussion here, and I'm trying to understand why, like how if your dad's example, that doesn't make the argument stronger that there should be a language test for citizens, right?
No, it was just that just now when you said that people came, we were a migrant thing, and even if they couldn't speak English, they got things done. I'm just saying that no, I think they needed to speak English to get things done, lah.
Really? You mean they weren't speaking Malay to each other, or other languages as well?
I mean, okay, this is a very anecdotal story just based on my dad's experience. When he came, he couldn't speak to anyone. Like when he took his first exam in school, he just copied the answers in English because he couldn't say anything else and he couldn't speak to anyone. So his whole family had to learn English, lah. But I mean, the thing, it's just one of those. Wait, So okay, that was my response to the last thing you just said.
Okay. I mean, we are having the debate here, and we're not gonna come to a direct answer. I guess it's just, if anything, I'm just noting that I just find it dangerous when someone says that this language is, because it is used by most people, therefore it's the most important thing or one of the important criteria that it means what it means to be a Singaporean. Because I've seen in my own experience in families and generations being separated because of thoughts like that, where this language is not important, it's not part of what our identity about being Singaporean is, and therefore we should purge it from our national consciousness, and that basically alienates a whole group and generation of people as well. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of I don't feel it's a wise move to go down that road where we say only if you speak this language then you can pass the test to become a Singaporean. So I think maybe if they put out language and said, here are the 4 languages we use here: Singapore, English, Chinese, Malay, something. If you demonstrate some kind of proficiency in all this in any of these languages, then you stand a higher chance of being considered for citizenship, lah. Like that, I think that's reasonable. That's reasonable. But then when you just say that it's just one language only, like English, because it's the most commonly used language now, then that makes me pause and think, hey, is that really what we want?
Yeah, but like what you said just now about that example of seeing families being separated because they don't get. You can say the same thing. There are people who are denied citizenship from Singapore because of some unknown criteria. So when you say I don't use my what if, what about, then you also don't use lah. You are using similar examples where it's just about a certain family that got hampered by this one hypothetical policy that we don't even know.
Huh?
So
but
saying,
but the thing is, I'm talking about language. But the example you're talking about is, I don't know what criteria for you, but I'm talking specifically about language. Yeah, that families getting separated because of separated or just like alienated because of language, this language criteria.
Like what example? Like how?
Like what I mentioned earlier.
What if also?
No.
Yeah.
Dialects were shut out of Singapore society officially. Whether it's radio stations or TV stations, it was very clear dialects were not viewed favorably. So a whole generation of Singaporeans, including me, also were not taught dialect or even exposed to dialect very much. And we know they were saying Chinese is the most important thing for you to learn, and so we only learn Chinese and we can't learn dialects. And I felt and I find that very dangerous when essentially they cut off and just say, oh, this language is not useful for you, then you don't. Nobody learns it, and then a whole generation of people, 2 generations of Chinese Singaporeans, there's a chasm between them.
Yeah, what does that have to do with? What does it have to do with like people applying to come to Singapore not being able to speak English?
No, putting down
yours
this
is people
marker.
were already in Singapore, right? People were already in Singapore.
Putting down marker saying that one language is the most important language to being Singaporean, you see. That's what I'm very worried about.
I would say, no, so I would still say at the end of this, I think now we are in, there are a lot of things that we need to consider when admitting new citizens. And I don't think like saying that this is a marker that it is what it takes to be Singaporean. Will it help you? Will it help you like integrate in Singapore more? Maybe we need more stats for that. Maybe being able to speak English has no determinant on how integrated you are and how you measure that. But I think the example you gave of the Singaporeans people in Singapore having something taken away from them versus people coming to Singapore or wanting to be part of Singapore is 2 very different things. Just like what Jo Teo said, she walks around and she sees people who don't speak English and they're not any less Singaporean. I totally agree. But that is different from people who are not from Singapore coming to be Singaporean.
Yeah. But that's why I'm saying that in putting this criteria in as being part of Singapore, clearly it's a marker that's saying that English is an important part of being Singaporean, right? And that's where I think that trickles down to a lot of other things as well in thinking about language policy in the country as well. So I think it cannot be... I want to talk about language in isolation from other immigration policy, because I agree with you, immigration policy, there's a lot to be worked on and decided.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that the mark, like placing English at the front and center of what it means to become a new Singapore citizen will definitely affect things about education policy and also about what language people choose to speak at home and things like that as well.
So maybe that's the core of our differences. To me, English is the main language in Singapore.
Correct. I don't disagree. That's main language, but maybe just not given the multicultural, multilingual sensitivities of our country and everything that we know about, how these languages are part of the culture and how they can die out if institutions, put down policies saying that, say for example, I mentioned Chinese is more important than speaking on the dialects. It can lead to a erosion of what all these like different cultural nuances that exist. So I don't disagree with you that English is important. It is a language, it is a common. So what I disagree with is saying that a test is needed to decide whether you speak English good enough to be Singaporean.
Okay, so I think we've gone to an impasse.
But we would love to hear people's views, whether you're on the Pritam bandwagon or the Josephine Teo train ride.
See, again, those 2 words, bandwagon, train ride, got a lot of different connotations. Terence, you can join Parliament already, sir.
Yeah. Okay, Josephine.
No,
I always flip it the other way. Josephine Teo bandwagon or the Pritam rocket ship. Yeah.
No, I think that was fun because I can't remember the last time where we disagreed so vehemently about one thing where we were just digging in lah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the one thing, what do you think of Jo Teo's response? If you say you thought that was a very well thought out response that totally answered all questions, then I'll be Terence. I don't think I can be friends with you anymore.
Yeah. No lah. I mean, definitely, I think the presentation of the argument was not great lah, and but I think, you know, in the spirit of what we're doing is to have a debate about it. That's why I say it's a very existential thing, right? It really comes down to the core of what the identity is about being a Singaporean. And like I mentioned, we can argue for almost an hour about it, but are we any closer to solving the issue lah? Right? Probably not lah, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's one of those topics that is like, wow, we can go all day on it. Yeah.
And no wonder you said it's existential question lah.
Yeah.
Because to you, it's like it determines what defines Singapore.
Yeah. It is a very important question. But yeah, maybe people who have been listening to this and you feel very spirited or you really want to jump to the debate, please do. Because I mean, I think we're dying to like declare a winner of this Royal Rumble here.
No. Terence. Again, we don't need a winner. Okay, we just need to think of the best thing for Singapore.
The best thing.
It might be a combination of both. It might be because again,
you must take O levels. You must take 8 subjects. Then you can pass and become Singaporean.
That sense. Okay, stop being an old uncle lah. Okay.
Yeah.
Like language is important. Multiculturalism, multilingualism, multi-language speaking ability is important. But also must remember lah that just because you speak English doesn't mean you have to give up your other languages lah.
So right. Yeah. That's I think it's a healthy way to conclude the discussion, right? As
I think this would be a fun. Yeah. This would be a fun podcast to watch the other topic. Now, no, it'd be fun. It'd be fun for people to watch the video of this lah. Because I think just now we were legit angry lah.
No, I wasn't angry. I was just very. I was just trying to like.
Yeah, that's
really
your face.
Through the argument. This is my. If you can't see on the podcast, my face. I'm giving those like really slit eyes, like really trying to.
No,
examine.
you have this one look where the sides of your lips pursed together, right? And I know you're angry. I've seen that face many times. Not on a podcast, outside a podcast. I know that face.
No. But honestly, I wasn't coming from anger. I was just coming from what is. I was just trying to pass through the argument. Like, yeah. Maybe it's also my furiously thinking face that also sometimes looks like angry face also. Yeah.
Yeah. But then now the second topic like feels so like okay lah, whatever lah.
No, really? No, I thought it was also quite a existential problem. Maybe not for us because we're men, but maybe for women it's a bigger thing. But yeah. Please, just let's jump right into it because we're already almost an hour in.
Almost an hour in talking about that.
Yeah.
So the news was that FIFA has unveiled a global fan ambassador 5 months before their Women's World Cup, and the ambassador is none other than Brazilian supermodel Adriana Lima.
Ex-Victoria's Secret model, right?
Ex-Victoria's Secret model, yeah. So I mean, that was announced and it's gotten a lot of backlash online, primarily from the former leader of the soccer body's task force for the women's game. And her name is Maya Dodd.
Yeah.
And she's Moya Dodd. She was part of the co-hosting bid campaign for Australia and New Zealand, which is where she's from. She's got a lot of followers online. So just to clarify, when I said like this topic is okay law, I wasn't trivializing women issues or anything like that.
Can she speak English? Can she speak English? That's the most important thing.
Because the moment you said, not important what? Maybe not to us, to women, then I was like, fuck this, Terence. I'm just saying that it feels like the repercussions of this in the short term. And yeah, okay, so yeah, I will keep it at that lah. But yeah, this was our second topic.
So I was just trying to understand it lah, right, when I was reading it. But basically the backlash is about the fact that a Victoria's Secret model who is not necessarily affiliated with football very closely or anything has become a global ambassador for the Women's World Cup, which is probably, I mean, football is one of the biggest women's sports right now, right? Around the world. So for a very famous Instagram model, Victoria's Secret model, to become the ambassador for what is a very very competitive, very physical, very energizing game of football. They feel that that's inappropriate, or at least not say inappropriate, but it's tone deaf. It's like what is the general message that we're trying to bring out to young boys and girls around the world about what women's football is about, right?
Yeah. So to clarify, I think she's a global fan ambassador, not specific to the World Cup.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it will be part of the World Cup because as a fan engagement ambassador, you want her to engage people. So of course, just the disclaimer that we are two dudes talking about this.
Yes.
But at the same time, when there was a backlash, I also was trying to understand it. I think what I get from the Moya Dot is that, I mean, she's also been very vocal about the World Cup in Qatar, and she called out FIFA's attempt at telling players who are LGBTQ to go to Saudi Arabia, and because it's almost like she felt it was very it was to send them to a jurisdiction where they are regarded as criminals. So FIFA apparently asked LGBTQ players and fans to visit Saudi Arabia, and she thought that was like a slap in the face, lah. So she is very vocal about issues such as this, lah. So I gather from what this article is saying is that Adriana Lima has nothing to do with football. Why is she the global fan ambassador? Right? Is that what you took away also?
That's what I took away. Because I'm trying to understand, is it because she has nothing to do with football as it is, or is it because she's a model, or what is it about it that Dot is so upset about? What do you think she's upset about?
I mean, based on her Twitter replies to other things posted on Twitter, like someone posted shared a screenshot of Adriana Lima's profile, which I mean shows her in a swimsuit as a cover photo, and on her Twitter bio it says entrepreneur in New York, Miami, Bahia, joined November. She has so it just felt like because she has nothing to do with football. But then at the same time I was thinking, like, if it's meant for fan engagement ambassador, where I would imagine part of the scope is to bring in people to watch FIFA or who might not have watched FIFA otherwise. Yeah, so maybe that's the issue, because it would I don't know how generally women feel about Adriana Lima, but to guys who grew up watching Victoria's Secret was like, oh shit, she's gorgeous, like, she's a supermodel. So maybe that was what she was getting at. Are you talking to the guys or are you talking to the women?
Yeah. I mean, I think she is the first ever FIFA global fan ambassador. So I guess if it's about reaching out to fans and all, you do want someone who is really, really, recognizable and well known, right? But I guess the question is, could they have found anyone else that, especially you say a female football player, someone who has much closer ties to the game itself, right? Could they have found someone else to be the ambassador? Obviously not. Probably you don't want to find a guy, right? Because I think that sends the wrong signals about women's football as well. But let's say if you're talking about women, aren't there other women who have done more amazing things, whether it's to do with football or even outside of the realm of football? Let's say, a really, really revered character, let's say Michelle Obama or something. Could she have been the FIFA global fan ambassador, if anything, right? So I guess maybe that's where, because I try to pass through, what is it about Adriana Lima that is tone deaf, like, so to speak? Like what you said, she's very well known, and she's also an entrepreneur, right, herself. So a successful female entrepreneur. So why is it that they would get so heated about her being a global fan ambassador?
Actually,
and she's from Brazil. She's from Brazilian as well. So football is a very big part of their culture as well, right?
Actually, but Terence, just because it's a big part of the culture, does it mean she's Brazilian if she does not like football, Terence?
I don't know. Let's put her. Does she speak Portuguese? Let's make her. That's more important, right?
No, okay. So I think the more we talk about it, and like I looked at Moya Dot's Twitter profile, she took another screenshot about certain things that Adriana Lima has allegedly said in the past. Like she denounces abortion. She like like the being part of Victoria's Secret when they were focused a lot on a certain kind of look. Her body was also, she had to like just drink protein shakes and fast and no liquids and just an unhealthy, unsustainable diet. So the more we talk about it, the more I read it, I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, the message here, I guess, okay, so let's say if it was a flip, if it was, say, field hockey, because hockey is nowhere the state of soccer in terms of popularity. If they were to get an ambassador or a dude like who you say, like, who would be an equivalent? Like some supermodel dude. Who's a supermodel dude?
Supermodel dude.
I don't know. Okay, actually, I think using the guy comparison not good. But I can, like what you said, like maybe there's a bigger champion of women's rights or women's entrepreneurship or women's abilities than someone that is more universally lauded for that specifically. Adriana Lima, of course, she conquered the modeling world, but there are more recognizable champions of women's issues.
I guess she's, I mean, you can say Adriana Lima is famous for being a Victoria's Secret model, right?
Yeah.
That's what she was known the most for in the past. I'm sure now, she's moved on to other ventures and yeah, she probably has much closer ties to FIFA and all. But if you're really talking about engaging a casual fan, if you tell them about Adriana Lima, they're not going to be talking about football. They're going to be talking about, her time as a Victoria's Secret model on the runway and everything, right? So maybe that's where, I don't blame Dot for saying that it's a bit tone deaf, right? In the sense that there are so many other female sporting icons that can be ambassadors for the game that would inspire the same amount or even more engagement from fans, right? Why weren't those people put forth and selected? But then the flip side is, do they want to be that global fan ambassador for the game, right? Because FIFA has the reputation of FIFA, especially in this recent World Cup, and watching Infantino, the president of FIFA himself, the way he conducts himself at the press conference prior to the World Cup, gives pause about whether maybe people think about do they want to be associated with FIFA and that closely,
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, yeah, I think this one actually, the more we talk about it, the more interesting it is, because it is, got so many things. Like one thing you said, the association of FIFA, and then Adriana Lima's role, and like what I said earlier also, it feels like it's a committee of dudes who may have thought about this, given, but also don't want to trivialize what Adriana Lima achieved. So, okay, but at the end of the day, I don't know, sir. I don't know. I guess this was announced when, like, not too long ago, right?
I think so.
So, March, like last night, I think, on Monday. It was on Monday.
Yeah,
it was on Monday. So interesting, interesting. I haven't seen too much chatter about this aside from a few very vocal people, but yeah, we'll see.
So if it was up to you, who would be the ideal FIFA global ambassador, global fan ambassador?
Like a women ambassador, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
I would say who? You got anyone in mind?
Not anyone particular, but I think maybe they could take a page from the world of tennis. I think tennis has a lot of female sporting icons, female sporting greats. Whether it's the Serena Williams or even in more recent times, Naomi Osaka, or what. I think they can help to pull in a very different audience. And also, I think
get them to be the FIFA ambassador.
Yeah, potentially. Because I mean, like Serena Williams is retired now, right? But she's been recognized as one of the greatest tennis players ever. not even female tennis players, but just greatest tennis players ever. So having done what she did for her sport to help shine light on another sport that is also played by a lot of young girls around the world. Yeah, I don't see why not,
I think if I had to choose now, I would say someone like Michelle Yeoh. Now she's like super champion of the world.
What does she have to do with football?
But she has broken through multiple glass ceilings, Terence.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of her Golden Globes telling the pianist to quieten down. But I mean, can't deny that this is the year of Michelle Yeoh, man. She just won the SAG award. So yeah, maybe.
I think there's no perfect answer. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear what women actually think about it, lah.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay.
Cool.
So shall we jump onto the one Shiok thing? I don't know, one Shiok comment first.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I think do you have your one Shiok comment already?
Yes.
I just need to pull mine out.
Yeah. So it was Book and Cook who posted on our last podcast about the recycling fiasco, and they pulled up a thread from the past that had an extensive discussion on it, and it was a thread in the Journey to Zero Waste Life in Singapore, and I think it was a 2020. So yeah, so it was just it's a discussion that has been ongoing, lah. So I thought, actually, that's a good resource. I don't know how that person pulled it up so quickly, or like whether they bookmarked it or something. But yeah, thanks for that.
You're talking about the entire exchange in response to our podcast about the shoe recycling fiasco.
No,
right?
So someone posted a thread on a Facebook page from a few years ago that was relevant to what we were discussing about the recycling in condo versus HDB.
Yeah. No, because I was just about to say that there's some quite interesting thoughts about it from our Reddit as well, from Original Goat One and Book and Cook as well, talking about the what would be a better way to recycle your old shoes, right? And there's some interesting debate and some interesting thoughts going on in there. So I just wanted to say, if people listen to that podcast and want to talk a little bit more about it or find out what people are thinking about it, do check it out.
Cool. Okay. And then the one Shiok thing.
Yes, I have my one Shiok thing. Recently there was a TikTok user who caught a middle-aged Singaporean uncle taking photos of her in her workout attire while she was taking an MRT train lah. And I think just the last day or so, that video that she did confronting the uncle and forcing him to delete his those photos that he took of her, that has gone viral. So there's some articles written about her, but also she has also that video itself has over 1 million views already, I think. But aside from that, after that she did a response video responding to people who are saying that, the uncle didn't do anything wrong, right? He wasn't taking upskirt photos of you. He was just taking photos of you in the MRT, in the public space and all, right? And she did a response video to that, which is pretty funny because she basically, spoke in a what I consider a very Singaporean accent, right? In response to all that. And then I went to look her up. I think her name is her username on Twitter is Daizamazze, DAIZAMAZZE. And she's got over 70,000 followers already, lah. But she actually does a quite funny videos about things in Singapore accent, and then coming from I don't know whether she's local or she's expat or what, but she's Caucasian, but she talks about her experience in Singapore. She makes a lot of funny videos about things like she reviews all the different kaya toasts across Ya Kun, Fun Toast, and Toast Box. And she talks about how she makes satirical videos about how she spends her parents' money in Singapore, where everything is crazy expensive and all.
How you spell her?
It's actually pretty funny.
How you spell her?
DAIZAMAZZE. Yeah. Daza Maze. So yeah, actually, I went because of the rage bait article that was posted. But I stayed around to watch some of the other videos because it's pretty funny. That she makes pretty funny videos about Singlish and all as well.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know she made a response video because I saw some articles saying mixed reactions to Uncle taking photos. I'm like, huh? How is it mixed? The guy fucking took photos of.
Yeah. But it was quite funny because the uncle was, if you watch the video, the uncle was claiming that. Yeah, he was trying to make a phone call and he didn't know how to use his phone properly. But then you look, then after that, when he had to delete the videos, he was like swiping through so many photos of her that he took, So it's definitely not accidental.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes,
cool.
And what is your one Shiok thing?
Yeah, my one Shiok thing I thought was going to be like your one Shiok thing, but it isn't. So it is the episode of South Park, which you told me about yesterday.
Yes.
That was released, I think maybe like a week and a half ago. It was called the World Privacy Tour. That was the name of the episode. And it basically is a dig at Meghan Markle and Harry. The story is about this Canadian prince and his wife who just want to get away and want privacy. But if you've been hearing anything about Meghan Markle, you watch it. It is so explicitly them without being explicit. And I don't know whether it's gotten any backlash. So far, I've seen people just saying that, it's exactly what people are feeling. I heard rumors that Meghan Markle and Harry want to sue South Park, but I don't think that's true. But the episode is hilarious, lah. It's fucking hilarious. Have you watched the whole thing yet?
No, I've only watched half of it.
Yeah, you can watch it for free on the South Park website. So it's an official thing. It's not like some bootleg or something. And I just like how South Park just does a great job cramming into 20 plus minutes a full story that has characters and all, and just makes so much fun of it. Like, holy shit, man! I forgot how great South Park is.
Yeah, there's even a whole thread about how to manage your brand image, right?
Exactly.
A big thread, the story, and they talk about how Harry and Meghan basically always paint themselves as victims in every scenario. And that's why the whole thing is just it's funny, but at the same time it's very. It felt like Harry and Meghan were beyond parody because the things they were doing, but South Park really did a good job like parodying everything.
Yeah. And I don't think it's mean or anything because the way they did it was quite skillful. Like you can totally know what they're talking about. But yeah, it's great. It's great. It's fucking great. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. But cool.
+1.
All right.
+1 for this one Shiok thing. Yeah.
+1. Yeah, you got to finish it, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please let us know your comments. And talk to you all soon.